Okay, so let's learn interquartile range from exercise 9i. Okay, so firstly, what you need to understand what is meant by the interquartile range. So it's basically when we're analyzing data, sometimes we need to measure the spread. Okay, there are two different ways in summary statistics that we can measure the spread. The first one is to find out what is the range. Okay, so let's just say, for example, after you finish an exams, I can tell the class, okay, the range of scores in the class is going to be the highest mark, highest result or the highest mark minus the lowest. So the range is pretty easy to find out. It's just equals to the highest score minus the lowest score. Okay, that is what the range is. The second way to measure the spread is use something called interquartile range. So quartiles means sort of like a quarter or 25%. Okay, so I'll show you how to use how to find interquartile range if we present with different numbers. All right, so I'll just write this one down. Interquartile range. The formula to calculate the interquartile range is pretty easy. It's equal to Q3 minus Q1, the third quartile minus the first quartile, or the upper quartile minus the lower quartiles. And then again, I will mention what is, I'll talk about what's upper quartiles, and then I'll talk about what's the lower quartile as well. All right, so let's just start with some one simple examples, all right? And we'll talk about, how do we find the upper and lower quartiles, and then how do we find the interquartile range. So to find interquartile range, there are two sort of, groups of questions, all right? The first group is when the number of values is odd. So if we have an odd set of scores, so for example, if we have like say 9 scores, okay, so 9 scores, I'm just going to provide you with 9 different random numbers. So that's 5, 7, 1, 0, 4, 3, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and now we've got 9 numbers here. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we've got 9 numbers or 9 scores, and this is odd set of scores. Now, how would you find out what is interquartile range from here? First step, what you need to do, step 1 is always we need to rearrange the scores from using ascending orders or descending orders, usually from the smallest to largest. Okay, so step 1. Okay, we need to rearrange scores. Usually it's from the smallest to largest. Okay, so from the smallest to the largest. Okay, all right, so that's the very important step. It's like you finding the median. Okay, you need to rearrange the scores. You can't just say, okay, median is the middle score, so therefore all you have to do is we start to cross out the numbers there, and then you start to find out that's the median, which is not correct. Okay, we just need to make sure that we need to rearrange the scores, so that's ascending order, or descending order, probably, yeah. Well, not usually in terms of descending order, but it's always like, ascending order here. And that would be the first step. All right, so let's start, all right, to rearrange the scores. All right, now remember, when you rearrange the scores, please cross out the numbers that you have used, okay? Otherwise, you forgot about where you, where you're up to. So once I use the 0, I cross out the 0. So this is the steps, all right? So it's pretty easy and straightforward. Okay, so we've got double 3, and we've got 4, 5, and then the last 2 is 7 and 8. Okay, 7 and 8. So step 1 finished. Now step 2, all right, in order for us to actually find the interquartile range or the quartiles, step 2 is actually find the median. So you need to find the median. All right, now median is actually considered to be quartile 2, okay, so Q2. So do you remember the previously where I wrote like a Q3 minus Q1, okay, Q3 minus Q1. median is actually Q2, which is the 50% of the score. So if you think about this, all right, Q1 is the first 25% of the score, Q2 50% of the score, Q3 is the the 75% or 3/4 of the scores, right? So it's about a position of the numbers that's in the data set here. Okay, so median is the middle position. Okay, so let's find the median here from these scores. So I'm just going to copy and paste. All right, so the median is pretty easy to find. You just start to cross the numbers from the front and the end, and then you realize, okay, the median is just the middle number here. That is the median. And please remember, we have an odd set of scores right now, so therefore there's only one number that's in the middle. We'll talk about what happens if there's two numbers in the middle and how do we find the median and interquartile range. All right, so once we have done that, all right, now we know this is the median. Okay, so the step 3 will be pretty straightforward. So think about it, right? That is the middle scores here. And now we have two groups. So basically this entire data set has been divided into two groups because that is the median, that's the middle score. So ignore it, don't worry about it. Now we've got the first group, which is 0, 1, 2, and 3. And we've got the next group, which is 4, 5, 7, and 8. So we'll break this one down into two groups after you finish finding the median. Okay, so what we need to do now for step 3 is we're breaking this one into two groups. Okay, so now we know the median is equal to 4, so don't worry about it. Then we have the first group, which is 0, 1, and 2, 3, and 3. Oh, sorry, I've made a mistake. Median is actually 3 there. The median is actually 3. Then the first group here is 0, 1, 2, and 3. Second group is 4, 5, 7, 8. All right, so once you finish that, now all you have to do is to find the middle score in these two groups. It's like finding the median again. Okay, so we have this is called the lower half. And this is the upper half. Now you probably can guess what the lower quartile and the upper quartile means. Now, if we want to find what is the median from the lower half, then that becomes Q1, which is the lower quartile. And then Q3 will be the upper quartile, or, the third quartile. So there's a couple of different names for that, okay? Upper quartile, lower quartile, first quartile, second and third quartiles. All right, so that's also called first quartiles. And that's also called, this is also called third quartiles. Okay, all right. So now what we need to do is to find the middle scores from both groups. So now if you think about this, all right, we can cross out a 0, cross out a 3. Then we end up with two numbers in the middle, okay? Therefore, the median between these two numbers will be the average between these two scores. So therefore, Q1 is 1.5. Same thing applies, all right? We cross the 4 and 8, and we've got two numbers in the middle. And then the median from this group, which is Q3, is the average between 5 and 7, which is equal to 6. And that's what's Q1 and Q3. So after you finish finding Q1 and Q3, then the last steps here, which is step 4, is pretty straightforward because step 4 is finding what is the interquartile range. And we know the interquartile range is the difference between the Q3 and Q1, or the difference between the upper and the lower quartiles. So the interquartile range is 6 minus 1.5, and that becomes 4.5. Okay, so that's how we do this question here if we have, an odd set of scores. Okay, and we'll talk about, what will happen if we have an even set of scores. The process is going to be very, very similar to this, all right? Apart from the grouping part, which is here, is going to be slightly different. All right, so we'll talk about this now. All right, now we have even. So we've got even number of, even set of scores or even number of scores. All right, even set of scores. All right, so let's just say we are going to have 10 numbers, okay? So 10 random numbers. Let's start. 5, 1, 2, 4, 0. That's the first 5, okay? And the next 4, 1, they're all random numbers. All right, anyway, it doesn't matter, 3, okay? All right, so I guess that's 10 numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 numbers here. All right, so 10 scores. The steps is going to be the same. All right, remember the first step is still rearranging. Okay, so we still need to rearrange those scores in ascending order. That will be the first step. All right, so step 1, please rearrange the score. So we'll start with 0. We've got double 1 here. We've got triple 2. There's a 3, and then double 4. And the last one is 5. Okay. Now, please always check you have the same number of scores. So just in case if you missed it, or if you write something extra, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so we've got 10 scores. So step 1 finished. Now step 2. I hope you still remember what's step 2. Step 2 is we need to find the median. Okay, of the scores. Okay, so we start to cross out the numbers from the front and the back. And since we have an even set of scores, so as you can see, we've got 2 numbers in the middle, okay? These are the 2 numbers in the middle. So in that case, what we need to do is we need to find the average between these 2 numbers. However, the average between these 2 numbers is the same, all right? Because the both numbers are equal to 2. So that's pretty good, all right? So that's actually easier for us to do the calculation, all right? So I'm just going to write down here. That is going to be the Q2, which is also called median. The Q2 is equal to 2. All right. Now, once you have finished that, then there's step 3. Oops, that's step 2. Now, step 3 is you need to group, right? Do you remember from the previous example where if it's an odd set of scores, when we do the grouping, we sort of ignore the middle median here and we group it like this. However, for the even set of scores, when we do the grouping, we're going to actually, we're actually going to use that 2 to group into the first group and use the 2 here to group that into the second group. So when we're dealing with the grouping here, we actually need to include both 2 to the first and the last term. Okay, so that would be the first group here, including the 2 that comes from the median, as you can see. And then we'll also need to group the second term. Okay, we'll also include the middle number here, which is 2, with the second term. All right, so this is the difference between even sets of scores and odd sets of scores. All right, so once you have finished that, then we need to find the middle scores from this group. All right, from the lower quartile, lower half, and then we need to find the middle numbers for this values here. So now it's pretty obvious Q1 is equal to if you keep crossing it, Q1 is equal to 1 and Q3 is equal to 4. Alright, so once you finish that, then the interquartile range is straightforward to do. It's just the difference between the Q3 and Q4. So the IQR is equal to 4 minus 1, which is equal to 3. Alright, and that's how you find the interquartile range when it comes to even set of scores or even number of values. So you have, you need to make sure that you form 2 groups of equal size. Alright, so it's actually pretty straightforward, I think. It's not something that's really hard, and everybody should be able to do this one without any major issues here. Okay, thanks for watching, and please let me know if you have any questions with the exercise.